Hello everybody, my name is Dylan Adame and I'm here to talk to you all about the legalization of marijuana. And at the end of this presentation, I believe that you too will want to legalize it. Now, for those of you that don't know what marijuana looks like, this is a picture. This picture is of a marijuana farm, basically a mass cultivation of the drug. Marijuana is illegal in the U.S., but some states have decriminalized it on their own, but Texas has not. And this picture is displaying a bunch of different types of marijuana. Now this is important because it shows that it's not just the drug marijuana. There's a bunch of different levels of marijuana, each with its own potency. Some examples here are Warlock, Honeymoon, Phaser, and Power Plant. So they all have their own names and they all differ in some sort of way. The legalization of marijuana is very important to us Americans and to our judicial system because it affects all of us. It affects adults, it affects kids, and this is very important. And in this changing time, it's no longer a new drug. It's been around for a long, long time, and people are more open about it. People are talking about it, and unfortunately, in this new age, kids are overly exposed to it. And many generations of usage from many past decades, especially in the Americas, has led to adults being okay with their kids doing it. So this in turn also has sparked this debate because parents are okay with their kids doing it because they did it way back when. Now we're going to go over some of the arguments on legalization. There are pros and cons, just like with anything, but as we'll see, the pros are much more persuading. So number one is government intervention and taxing. Taxing could be a huge revenue for our struggling country. As we all know, we're in a lot of debt, and taxing it would not be a bad idea. Also, with taxing and government regulations, it would make the product safer. The FDA would get involved. We wouldn't have bad stashes getting passed out to adults and kids, possibly harming them, and this could be very good for those that are using it right now and don't plan to stop, whether it is illegal or legal. The regulations also would probably treat it like alcohol, meaning that it would be a 21 or over thing and actually harder for kids to get because drug dealers do not ask for IDs, and that's something that's a very important thing to remember when you're talking about legalizing it. It may actually become harder to get as opposed to easier to get for people who should not be doing it. Now, another thing is with government regulations, it would stop drug trafficking. It would stop the need for for Mexican cartels to come over and distribute the drug, or anybody that just wants to profit off of this and does not have the consumer in mind. It could stop that. It could stop a lot of the violence going along with it, and it could stop kids from getting involved in drug dealing as well. And also more knowledge about it. We've learned from tobacco and alcohol, there's been big awareness programs because it is legal and the government wants to show you what is in it before you buy it, and you become more educated, and it's become more positive than negative about legalizing it. People will become more educated. Now of course there are the cons. More people will be exposed to it. It will be easier to get in theory for the people that can buy it, but again you can weigh against it with it being regulated. It could be also, because you'll control the stash, the government will control supply. It might actually go the opposite way as from this argument. And then also there won't be a scare factor of going to jail. That's a big deal. You can get in big trouble with the penal system if you are caught with it, but right now we don't know if we really even want to spend that cost on people who are in jail for just smoking pot. I mean, there's other things that our resources could be devoted to. So, yes or no? That's the decision that us voters have to make as U.S. citizens, and I believe it should be yes. And another advocate of this is of the California legislation in the Superior Court. His name is Judge J.P. Gray, and he testified on the California State Assembly for legalization of marijuana. And some of his main points included legalization is not condoning. Just because you legalize something does not mean that we want you to do it. There should really be no ads, which I agree with, and I think a lot of people would too. De-glamorize it, and this could help lower the want to buy, but also, you know, it'll make it safer and so on if we legalize it but don't condone it. Right now in the state of California, there are thousands of people that are in prison for just smoking marijuana, and that's it. They may have done something else, been on parole, got caught smoking pot, and then now they're in jail for the rest of their life because of just smoking pot. Their contributions that they could be making to society are no longer there. They're just now on our tax dollars in jail because of only smoking pot. Now, another thing is that I stated earlier, is more money on marijuana is taking away from money that could be put forward toward rape crimes and homicides. You know, you're spending so much money on trying to prosecute marijuana users that it's taking away from other things, and that should not happen. It's not as big. It's not necessary. And then in the same sense of prohibition, when alcohol was no longer legal, when people were trying to get alcohol out and distribute it, there was a rule that you wouldn't, if you had the choice between beer and bourbon and the penalties were the same for both, you would get bourbon because it was the heavier stuff. Now, people using marijuana probably only want the lighter stuff. They just want to do what they want their own potency, if you will. But because of it's drug trafficking, it's the same rule. They end up getting the heavier stuff, and it ends up being, you know, almost more harmful because of prohibition, because of that. So that's another reason to lift the drug prohibition on marijuana. And then finally is the children. Children, you can ask anybody today in high schools and even some middle schools, marijuana is easier to get than alcohol. And the reason is, like I stated earlier, drug dealers do not ask for ID. You know, it's much easier. You can go ask anybody and they will tell you the same thing. Marijuana is very easy to get. And also, in the fact that 14, 15, 6-year-olds can get marijuana, it's easy to recruit them. It's easy to pay high schoolers $50, $60 to sell marijuana to all their friends. And it's nothing for the drug dealer to pay that, and to a kid it's a lot of money, and it ends up just becoming a little franchise where kids are becoming drug dealers because of prohibition. If it was regulated, this would not happen, and I truly believe in that. So it needs to be regulated. And this is my works cited, and thank you for your time.